Hello everyone and welcome to Best for Women Live. I am so excited to have you join me, and I'm in a little bit of a different location today. I am hanging out with you in my Alison Crouch from Move Smart Movement. She is not surprising, a movement coach. And I continue to find really interesting things about her, including the fact that she posted today to say that she is actually part of the crew who worked on Phantom of the Opera, which is now wrapping up. So that's like super awesome. Alison, you never cease to amaze me, my friend, with how amazing you are.
Aw, thanks.
So happy to have you here today.
So happy to be here. I'm just realizing that when I use my microphone, I can't hear you. So just a little joggling around to get rid of my microphone.
Totally understand that. I actually spent a good part of this morning tearing apart my house looking for my headphones, found them, and do you think I can figure out where I set them down?
No. I spent an inordinate amount of my time running around my house looking for my headphones.
So if I'm a little echoey, I apologize to everyone. It's just, it is what it is.
And then we're going to match because I also don't have headphones. So there we go.
Perfect. I was just saying, you're joining me in my gym.
Oh,
I don't think you've ever. Yeah, here, quick. Let me show you. So this is my beautiful space. All kinds of stuff, junk. You recognize all the fun stuff.
I do.
There's more stuff down this way. You'll probably recognize the barrel.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of good, fabulous stuff for play.
Nice. So good.
So today we're talking about a topic that I know is important to you, me too, which is irritable bowel syndrome, known to those who have it as IBS. Now, I was first diagnosed pre-pandemic, but after 5 years of working with dietitians and doctors to try and figure out what was wrong. And when they told me that it's IBS, I actually said to my specialist, who's a liver, kidney internist, and I said, like, isn't that what they call it when they don't know what it is? And he kind of giggled and was like, yeah, we don't know what's wrong with you.
Yep. Least satisfying diagnosis ever.
Yeah. Yeah. But the thing that I did find out is that it wasn't the food. It wasn't.
Yeah, so for you, it's been a very different journey from what most people expect IBS is about.
Yeah, tell us a little bit, if you're comfortable to share, about what, why it's important to you.
Well, so for me, it does seem to be the food mostly. Mine was a very sudden, my digestion, I've had a bunch of things not work for me over my life, but my digestion was not one of them. I've always been just like, I can eat anything I want, no problem. And then literally over the course of about 6 weeks, I suddenly stopped feeling good. And as anybody who has IBS knows, there would be days where I was like, oh, I need to not leave my home. Nobody wants to be close to me today, and I need to be close to a bathroom at all times. And I was like, what could this be? So as one does, I started experimenting with what I was eating.
Yeah.
So first I took out dairy, and that seemed to help, but not entirely. And then I ended up taking out gluten as well. And I think the reason, and dairy does definitely seem to be an issue, but I think the reason it helped somewhat, but not entirely, is, of course, when you have dairy, often you have gluten to go with it.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes, you put the butter on the
Macaroni and cheese and crackers, pasta with cheese, So putting out dairy kind of inadvertently cut out a bunch of gluten as well. And so that seemed to make a pretty big difference most of the time. And so, went to the doctor and was like, so this seems to be what's happening, and went through all the tests and went through all the ultrasounds and all the blood tests and all the stuff. And my doctor said, well, we could test you for celiac. that will mean you'll have to eat gluten for 3 months. And I was like, oh, hard no.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. I have a job that means I need to be close to people. I'm not, and also I would like to enjoy my life. So no. So, ultimately didn't do that particular test and got the same thing, IBS, which is like, okay, so you acknowledge that I don't feel good, but you don't really have any solutions for me.
Yeah, and you're not sure why. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you, so I ended up having a biopsy actually. They ruled out, so I had a stomach biopsy. They ruled out H, H. pylori
H. pylori.
something. Thank you. Which is a bacteria. They also ruled out celiac for me with the stomach biopsy. And that was more uncomfortable than painful. But similar to you, mine is a swelling. So I have inflammation. The inflammation is body-wide. The
Mm-hmm.
swelling is in my upper abdomen, so right underneath my rib cage, so small intestine. And it's instantaneous. Within one bite of food, within one sip of water, it'll suddenly trigger. And I can go from looking like my normal self to about 7 months pregnant in a span of about 5 minutes. And people around me are horrified, like want to take me to the hospital. So and I was at work as a consultant at the time. And so what I used to do is I always wore a pashmina, and I would just sort of drape it across the front of me on the days when I knew I wasn't okay. And I ended up inadvertently adopting fasting because I was afraid to eat on site when I was at a client site because it was just too much risk.
Yeah. It just changes, can change your life and how you interact with food and how you interact with other people and how you manage your time and where you go and the information that you have, like, do I have an extra layer? And you know what? I mean, when I'm not feeling great, I don't think my responses are as strong as yours. But for sure, I have days when I very deliberately wear loose clothes, partly because it's more physically comfortable, but also because I think one of the worst things that we can do is suck it all in to try and look like this is not happening. I'm not suddenly blowing up like a person who's, pregnant or having some kind of alien event happening.
Yeah,
Um,
movie totally.
because that,
But I hate that movie. I cannot think about it. Terrified me as a kid.
yeah. Because that gripping in of our gut is it's so intuitive to do, to look normal, but it's so not helpful. And having comfortable drapey clothes that allow me to just carry on with my day as best I can without feeling, I mean, I'm already going to feel uncomfortable if I try and put anything constrictive. And, there's the nice thing about being a movement teacher is I get to wear stretchy clothes all day, every day. I can't imagine having a job where you have to wear hard pants.
Yes, pants are a problem. They do not make pants that are that stretchy. There was actually a period of time when before I was diagnosed, I used to borrow my sister's maternity clothes because they have the super stretchy waistband.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, other than that, nothing is designed to change like that. So I took to wearing a lot of dresses, flowy things, and then had other people pull me aside to say, these aren't the most flattering clothes to be at a client. I'm like, whatever, you don't understand.
Yeah.
You don't
Until
understand.
until you have walked a mile in my shoes, just back off.
Yeah, yeah. So for me, some of the things I do know is that it's worse when I'm under stress. It's worse when I'm undergoing changes. Um, it's so I am possibly more sensitive. Mine was actually started after a very strong dose of antibiotics. Interesting.
I've heard that can be. So I have not had antibiotics recently, but I had a lot of antibiotics as a kid. I was quite sickly as a kid. I had repeated recurring respiratory and sinus infections. So, we know that that can have an effect and it can just kind of show up later, right? So
That was definitely an event, that correlated event. The other thing that I really found is, and I know we're going to talk a bit about this, breathing made a huge difference for me. So for those of you who come regularly, I host a breathing session every Wednesday called Breathing, the Midweek Edition. Literally, it is what it is. And it's just a few minutes to pause and take that breath to recenter ourselves. And I've really found that that ability to stop to breathe has been so important. And we can get into a bit of the mechanics about that. But have you found something similar, that there's a connection between your breath and your digestion?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I mean, yeah, the mechanics of that pressure canister, which your digestive system lives within that canister, I think finding, it's almost like your breath can act as like an internal massage for your digestive system, which helps to keep things a little bit more pliable, to keep things a little bit less, again, that locking, trying to avoid locking in, locking down, gripping, tensing, right? All of those things that come with stress, with fatigue, right? Not sleeping well. I know that mine is worse when I'm not sleeping well, and I don't sleep particularly well, so that's a thing. And discomfort, right? When we're uncomfortable, we do tend to tighten up and grip. And I think taking that moment, whether it's 30 seconds or a minute or 5 minutes, to breathe in a way that helps you to relax and settle will absolutely make a difference for your digestive processes, for sure.
Oh, completely agree. And it's interesting how you talk about it as a canister. I love that, because it really is. Your diaphragm is going to sort of like pull down, press down on everything. Although I don't know if this is medically true or not, but I feel like it's a part of the peristalsis process. Like the part of the movement of the food through your digestive system is this sort of regular compression of the digestive system. I really do believe that plays a role in it. Whether you're horizontal or upright, it still is going to be pushing against your digestion. And the more stressed, I see it in my clients all the time. I can tell the moment we're on a call, I know, and I watch them and they're breathing just up here. Like it's all their breath is just sitting under their collarbone. There's no breath going down to the belly at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the opposite, there's no movement here. There's no movement at the ribs. It's all at the belly, is also not super helpful. So finding that relationship between the upper respiratory function, the mid respiratory function, and the lower, and being able to coordinate those reasonably smoothly, at least as an exercise. I think one of the things to remember when we talk about breathing as an exercise is it is just that. In the same way that you don't walk around doing bicep curls all day because bicep curls are good for you, we do want to encourage different ways of breathing, different strategies for breathing. And then when you go through your day, you just breathe, right?
Yes.
As long as the air is going in and the air is going out and you're alive, to a certain extent, you're good. And I mention that only because there are people who get so connected to the idea that they have to breathe right that they end up stressing their systems even more than they would have had they stuck with their perhaps not ideal breathing pattern, but at least it's not one that adds extra stress to their lives.
Oh, it's such a good point. Beautiful point. And it's true. We sort of are looking for the cure, right? We're looking for the solution. And so we sort of bind ourselves to what feels good. Breathing feels great when it's relaxed, right? Just gentle, relaxed breath. There's no right way to do it. You'll know when you feel it.
Yeah, yeah. And it's different for everybody, right? If you are super, super tight and tense across your chest and your shoulders and there is no availability of movement here, it's going to be very, very hard to have that sense of just let your chest open sideways, right? Allow the joints where your ribs connect to your sternum to open up. They don't actually open up. For anybody who's listening, the joints do not actually open up. We just use that as an image. That's not going to happen. And so there is going to be more of a reliance on belly breathing and not in the like happy, relaxed, you have availability of movement to your core breathing, but like a forced, the breathing has to go into the belly or it has to go up into your neck. So that's the other thing to me about breathing exercises and taking, or not even breathing exercises, but as you do, to just take a moment to breathe in a way that feels good. is it can be just like game changing for people.
It's so interesting to watch that, and all it takes is 2 breaths of just being aware. You're not even changing anything, just being aware of the fact that your breathing can change and bring that moment of relaxation, because that sort of panic sensation is suddenly not subconsciously sitting there. You're just aware of the fact that you're breathing, and your breathing will calm down. And it's also so interesting for me, you talk about that sort of the canister and I call it bracing, right? I think of like a brace. And it's hard, because when you are in the moment and you're swollen and you are there can be both discomfort from pain, sometimes there's sharp pain in through like bowel areas, gases moving around or suddenly expanding. There can be a sense of real discomfort, and depending on where it is, it could be low in the bowel, it could be up under the rib cage. I find that I'm going to try and brace myself against the pain. And so now you're in kind of, I'm going to call it almost like a downward spiral, where you're sort of fighting against this swelling, this inflammation, this ballooning is happening. And at the same time, you're like, but I know if I relax, it'll get better. It's so hard.
It is. It's very frustrating. And for me, movement is part of the key. And being able to move as fluidly and with as little strain and stress as possible. So for me, rotation is a good one. Whether that's lying down and doing like really gentle, we call them windshield wipers, where you're just like letting your knees roll from side to side, which allows your pelvis and your back to move along with you. And hey, guess where your digestive system is? Just above your pelvis. I find that super helpful. As you know, I'm a big fan of the squishy ball, and just a little gentle pressure. I really like the lying on the ball, and that feels good to me. But I have a client who tried it, and we had talked about, grading your weight, like you take weight onto your forearms and onto your knees to prevent you from taking too much pressure. She gave it a try, and it really didn't work for her. It was too intense. So what she's settled on is she just takes the ball while she's seated, and she just holds it. She uses the weight of her arms to just press the ball into her belly, and she just rolls it from side to side.
Interesting.
A little bit of pressure. So is it actually doing anything to the dispersal of gases? No, I would argue not. Is it helping her nervous system to settle? 100% it is.
That
right?
touch, that just responsive sensation. Yeah.
And I think that becomes a huge part of the conversation. Is we know, and we're starting to know more and more, that our nervous system is, yes, of course, your nervous system is involved in everything because that's the way the body works. But we're starting to realize the degree to which that's true in everything. And so when you're talking about something like IBS, where, is there an actual answer? No, there is not. Is it life complicating? Yeah, it is, for sure. I think it's really worth noting that the nervous system is this sort of all-encompassing, all-affecting system, and everything that we can do to help our nervous systems to settle and relax and release is going to help something that is as complex as our digestive system to work better, feel better, or even just to help us manage the discomfort better.
Yeah, and when you say complex, it is. In the same way, our skin is our greatest boundary protector against the elements, against, we actually, so my spouse and I, we've been playing the Oregon Trail. Do you remember this video game? Yeah, I see a smile. So dysentery. If you know the game, you know that one of the inventory metrics is who in your party died of dysentery. And so it's set during the time of the California Gold Rush. It's a very old video game that was remastered. But we were sort of talking about that and how blessed we are to be in this day and age where we're not actually at risk of dying of dysentery. It's a real thing. But our second largest, if not larger, protection barrier is our digestive system. Like our saliva, our teeth, our the hydrochloric acid in your stomach. I mean, that stuff, if it gets on your skin, is really dangerous. And yet we hold it inside us. And then there's the whole complex, I'm going to call it machinery, of our small intestine, our pancreas, our large intestine, all the beautiful hormones and secretions that will go through all of that. It monitors our water and the consistency of our stool. We go to the bathroom, all these things happen, and we have no control really over it at all. It just does it for us on its own, and it's remarkable, like awe-inspiring, remarkable.
Yep.
Except when it's not functioning fully.
And then when it stops working ideally, it's really overwhelming. And it's so frustrating when, you know, somebody says, okay, you have IBS. All right, great. So now I'm going to go to the naturopath who specializes in IBS, and their answer is just stop eating everything. You know, don't eat that. Okay, I have come to terms with the dairy and the gluten. But, you know, also don't eat onions and garlic and asparagus and like all of the things that may potentially contribute at a certain point when, as you said, stress and distress and not being able to engage in your life make your symptoms worse. Well, not being able to eat anything for most people, or making eating such an incredibly stressful process of elimination.
Right? Yes, it does.
Is it a worthwhile trade-off?
It is really. So mine turns out to be my biggest trigger is chicken. And
really?
Yeah, and it took years to discover that, because we took eggs out early on. I've always known I can do eggs in baking, but eggs on their own is something I can do in small quantities. I can have it. It's not going to make me sick. But if I have like eggs every day, then that's not okay. So eggs once in a while is fine. And they kept saying, no, it can't be chicken. It's how you're preparing it. It's the sauce you put on it. Some of the foods you were referencing around onions and some of these beautiful foods, it's called the FODMAP diet. And it's one where it's a very severe elimination diet. And elimination in the sense that you take everything out and then you put things back in one at a time. And it's a very long process because you have to put it in, you have to test it 3 times, you have to give it a few, and then sort of take it back out and then try the next one. You don't know if it's cumulative or like it's a very complex. It's a science experiment in your gut. And it was miserable. And finally, and I kept saying, I really think it's the chicken. No, chicken is really an unlikely cause. It's going to be the gluten. It's going to be the dairy. Finally, I said, listen, a chicken is an egg. And I took chicken out, and I started to feel better for a while. Coffee's been one for me. Coffee is a strong irritant and an inflamer for me. It irritates my bladder to no end. And so I feel better without it, but I love it. So I'm measured and careful with it.
Is there a difference between caffeinated and decaf? No. Can you drink tea? Like, is it coffee specific?
Coffee. Yeah, which is also interesting and weird. Yeah. All right, you sort of accept it. One of the other things I wanted to ask you about would have been, so we talked about sort of movement, breathing plays a role. What other things have you found to be either a factor or something you've learned along your journey?
I have, you've kind of stumped me. I feel like honestly the answer might be no. No, I think we've really covered the big ones, like stress, sleep, movement, certain kinds of food. I elected not to do the FODMAP diet. I decided that it was not worth it to me to continue to cut that much stuff out and to make my life be completely about what I eat and what I don't eat. But that said, I have a couple of clients who, for them, it has been really positive experience, and they feel much better, and they're happy to make that trade-off. So I think one of the things that I really am aware of is it's absolutely different for everybody.
Yes.
Every single human who deals with IBS is dealing with it in a slightly different way, with different responses to different things, with different triggers, with different degrees of response, and different pacing and paces of, some people it's immediate, it's within 5 minutes. For me, it's often a day or even 2 days later. It makes it really hard to figure out what instigated things, because it can take 24 to 48 hours before I'm suddenly like, oh, I did not get away with that the way I thought I did. And so I guess
pass. Like once I'm triggered, at about 48 hours later, the swelling and whatever it was will finally go, and I know when it has.
Yeah. So for me, it's like 24 to 48 hours for it to really start, and then it can last for up to a week.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Totally different.
I'm going to ask you a question, though, because you've mentioned before about hypermobility as a connection. Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, so with the full transparency that this is not my area of specialty, and this is not based on, I'm not going to be able to cite anything, there does seem to be a connection between hypermobility and IBS. Statistically, people with hypermobility are more likely to have IBS. Statistically, people with IBS are more likely to be hypermobile. The theory seems to be that, so hypermobility, there's a spectrum of like just sort of vaguely more mobile. Hypermobility is like when you're super flexible in particular joints. It might be body-wide, it might be in certain places. Yeah, exactly. So you and I are both on that spectrum. It's a situation in which you have less collagen or less well-organized collagen in your body. And so we see it in muscles and joints, but it also is present in your digestive system, because the walls of your digestive system contain collagen. And so the theory seems to be that the process of peristalsis is less effective.
Oh, interesting.
In people with hypermobility. And so it's not a diagnosable condition. So you end up with this IBS label. You just get lumped in with people who have absorption disorders and whatever it is that's contributing to the IBS. And that makes a lot of sense to me, for me, in terms of how long it takes for things to affect me. And I wonder if that's partly because my system doesn't have the resilience, the rigidity in the actual muscular. So peristalsis, for anybody who's watching who's like, that's a big word. Peristalsis is this like gentle pulsing of your system that contributes to the movement of matter through your digestive system. It is a totally outside your control. You can't be like, I'm going to go to the gym and do some peristalsis workouts. That's not how it goes. It's an autonomic nervous system function, nervous system again. But because there's less collagen, there's less integrity to the actual muscle that is doing the contracting.
So interesting. My mom has slow digestion, as do I. So things take about 24 to 48 hours, closer to 48 hours to move through me. Corn is always a test, by the way. And one of the things that I really found is that walking has a very strong impact on me. So you talked before about the windshield wiper knees and that sort of movement. For me, the rotational twist, right? You have upper body, lower body, that sort of cross function. So if I'm walking with a good arm swing and a long stride, then I am getting a bit of that internal rotation twisting happening. And I find that I'm more regular in going to the bathroom. By the way, I'm very comfortable talking about going to the bathrooms. I know you are. And so being able to go regularly, the consistency is more consistent. And I find that I am better when I walk. And for me, it's it's a good brisk walk. This is not, I'm sort of moving at a slow pace, stopping to talk to people. If you walk with a dog, the constant stopping to sniff, that's not a brisk walk. But part of why I think I've had a flare up in the past couple months is because I had iron challenges and have become borderline anemic. And so I can't go for a brisk walk. I get too tired.
You're tired.
And I'm winded. I'm very easily winded. So we've been working with iron therapy, which of course affects your digestion. We've been working on building back up my tolerance and
Yeah.
ensuring I'm now able to walk around the block and I can actually do that, which has really been hard for me. I'm also a movement coach, and it's awful not being able to do something as simple as walking around the block.
Yeah.
So all of it's very complex.
So 2 questions.
Yeah, please.
Have you kind of, is there an optimal amount of time for you? Like duration of walk?
Yeah, so 45-minute brisk walk.
Okay. And then the other thing is you wouldn't want to do it for 45 minutes, but when you're in a state where you can't really go for a walk, or you get into that place where like you could go for a brisk walk, but then you have to get back again, just stand on like on a yoga block or the bottom stair of a staircase where you've got some clear space underneath you, and then you just do a fairly vigorous arm and leg swing, standing in place.
Oh, interesting. So standing on one leg, swing the other side.
Yep.
Huh.
Right. So
I love it.
I mean, you could do it just standing, but it gets you that slight, just little bit of rotation. It's very fatiguing for the standing leg, just so you know.
Yeah.
It's really good workout for your head. But it would mean you could do the energetic output, and then when you're done, you can just be done. Take a rest, and then stand on the other leg and do it again. Be done.
I love that. I love that. It is complex, right? Because you talked about absorption, right? That's a challenge. There's a lot of complicating factors when you start to go into this like complexity of digestion. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I will definitely give that one a try if I'm in one of my lower episodes. We just got my blood work back. I'm on the right trend.
Yay! This is good. The other thing, because it's kind of my thing that is worth mentioning, is there's also a statistical connection between osteoporosis, capacity for food absorption, celiac and other malabsorption disorders, and IBS.
Tell me a little bit more about that. We've got a couple minutes to go.
Hypermobility.
Okay, really? Okay, tell me, because I know calcium absorption and retention are 2 components, right? Because you could absorb it, then can you actually utilize it?
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about what you found.
Well, that's it exactly. And I mean, calcium is like everybody knows about calcium for bone health, but it's again, it's so much more complex. And again, this is outside my specialty. I'm not a nutritionist or a dietitian. This is just based on all the things that I've tried to learn for my own self. But there's calcium, there's vitamin D, there's vitamin K, and there's a whole host of hormones and enzymes, and it's a complicated cascade of things that need to happen for us to be able to properly absorb the nutrients we need for bone health. So, I mean, we're sort of compromised by just living where and when we do, in the sense of many of us don't have good, affordable access to healthy fruits and vegetables, and, you know, food that has not been filled with antibiotics, which we know are not great for digestive health and all of that other stuff. But if you, for whatever reason, are unable to absorb what nutrients you have access to naturally in food, as opposed to through supplements, this can have a huge effect. So if you can be eating the best diet, like this is where one of these things, part of my interest in this came from the fact that myself and my mother and my grandmother, we all have osteoporosis. Well, my grandmother not anymore, but she did. We are healthy, we eat well, we are active, and yet we have appalling bone density, and from a very young age. So I was like, like none of the markers are there for us to be at high risk, and yet here we all are. And so I started to really think about, I do wonder if we have some kind of, family tendency towards malabsorption that doesn't manifest. I'm the only one who shows up with IBS,
Okay.
but you absolutely can have a malabsorption issue without being symptomatic.
Well, and it's sneaky. Iron is very similar, right? You have no symptoms of low iron until it's done, because your body uses what it needs until there isn't. It doesn't ration it. It doesn't. It takes exactly what it needs until the tank is empty, and then it lays down.
And it's like, now I'm going to sleep. I'm done. Thank you.
And I mean, when you think about it, calcium is used in so much of our internal processes. This is part of what makes it complicated. Why is it even related to bone health? Because our bones are literally a reservoir of calcium. It's that important to us that the body keeps a reservoir of it in our arms and legs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. In order to use as needed. Excuse me. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's remarkable the way your digestive system is so connected to these other apparently very separate systems. Your digestive system is connected to your bones. Your digestive system is connected. There's been lots of interesting research done on small intestine bacterial overgrowth, or SIBO, which often goes along with IBS. And there has been research done showing small intestine bacteria in the brains of people with Alzheimer's on autopsy post.
It's also connected to lactation. So how does it get from your gut up to the mammary glands? There's a physical connection because it's in breast milk, and it's gut bacteria. It's being created elsewhere. It's being pulled up and through. It's so, yeah, the body is just so complicated and so fascinating and so awesome. The thing that I particularly love and I want to leave with is that the body also has an immense capacity to heal itself if it has the right resources. And by resources, it's movement, it's nutrition, it's rest, right? All the things you talk about is all the tenets of health are the things that allow you to literally regenerate.
Yep. And I think that, it's the least satisfying answer across the board. It's the most frustrating, least satisfying answer. But honestly, if you struggle with IBS, finding moments to teach yourself how to actually rest is possibly the most important thing that you can do. And you can do it through a variety of mechanisms, right? You can do it as a breathing practice. You can do it as a meditation practice. You can do it as a just like shut the door to your bedroom and curl up on your bed and think about nothing. You can do it as going for a walk. Rest looks different for different people, but really and truly finding those moments which you learn the skill. Resting is a skill. Resting is not something that comes naturally to many people. And then you gradually can take those moments where you're like, okay, I can do this for like 2 minutes, and then I have to go and check all the things. And then gradually you're like, no, I could do this for 5 minutes. No, I could do this for 10 minutes. I could do this for 10 minutes twice a day. I could make space for intentional resting.
Which is the work that I often do with my clients, right? They're such high performers, and they say, okay, well, where's your moment of rest? Well, I sleep. No, that's a part of rest, but that is not rest. And we really dig into the nuance of rest. Oh, I'm looking forward to that conversation with you, my friend. Alison, I have had the pleasure of taking your online workshops and courses before. Your movement practice, you talked about some of the analogies today. They're so enriching, and they're so grounded. I always can tell exactly what you're talking about in your courses. How can people find you, my friend?
You could head to my bio, and there is, as is always the case on Instagram, there's a link in bio. And if you click on that, it will take you to a link tree that has lots of different options. I have free resources. I have a YouTube channel so people can see sort of longer stuff. I have some paid courses. I have a course on pelvic floor function and the connection between your knees, your hips, and your feet. And then I'm very excited because I'm working on a course for osteoporosis, which we start filming this week and will hopefully be available to the greater world within the next. I'm going to give myself a stretch goal of a month, maybe 6 weeks.
Cool. Very cool. I'm so excited. As soon as that's launched, we'll let everyone know where to find that for sure. Yeah. Alison, I appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, because I know you've done so much research into this. But I also want to really thank you for your openness to share some of your experience. IBS is so personal and it affects each person differently, but we all carry some things in common, which is that we're in a state of discomfort, pain. It can make it difficult to focus, and it can make it difficult and leave you with fear of food. So thank you for providing us with some potential, they're not solutions, but they're contributing factors to recovery and remission. And really, really appreciate you sharing today.
Thank you so much. And it was so much fun to be here. I love talking to you about, anything, but I share with you your real goal for helping people to connect and feel better in their lives. And I appreciate that about you. And I'm always happy to contribute.
Thank you so much. I've kept this mostly on time. Thank you for that. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the day. We will be posting a replay of this for sure.
Yay.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. If you're looking for more resources, go to www.bestforwomen.ca, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.